Black and white photography has always been my first love. In fact, I never wanted to be a colour photographer. My initial formal education in photography was actually in black and white photography, and in particular the traditional wet darkroom, which of course has now been replaced with the computer and the digital darkroom. One thing I remember particularly from my early training in black and white photography is the importance of pre-visualising how you want your print to look. And essentially, the act of taking a photograph is only the first stage in the whole process of creating the final black and white image. Indeed, the darkroom was as important, if not more important, than the actual picture taking. And in my opinion, nothing has changed now, even in the digital age. Hi guys, welcome to what's going to be a slightly different video from my normal out in the field based ones, because today, as you can see, I'm at home behind the computer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through how I process my black and white images. Now this isn't going to be a tutorial as such, because what I really want to try and do is sort of show you my thinking about why I do things in a certain way. Not necessarily the way I do them, just the reason why I do them. Now I personally think that the post-processing stage of black and white images is such a personal part of the whole process, and it's part of the reason why I'm not a great fan of Lightroom presets that you can buy from other photographers. Because ultimately that's how that photographer is visualising the look they want, and I think it's important that you learn yourself what you want to try and achieve with your own photos. So with that in mind, let's delve straight into the first image. So the first shot we're going to process is actually one that I took in the summer last year in the Swiss Alps, and it sort of follows on nicely from last week's video because it's actually a panoramic shot which was taken with the Panasonic S5 and the 70-300mm lens. So as you can see, the crop is already applied. I've done nothing at all to this image at the moment. If I have a look at it, and straight away, basically I'm keen to keep the drama of the shot. I want a nice contrasty sky, and I'd like to try and sort of bring out these subtle layers as such. So the first thing I'm going to do, as it is a Panasonic shot, is I'm going to go straight into Camera L Monochrome D, which gives us that, and that gives us a nice amount of contrast, which I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, and now start bringing the exposure up into the point where we can start seeing these nice layers of the mountain there. Now, I did say that I'm not a fan of presets, and this is very true, but there is one preset I actually use, and I don't use it so much for the whole preset thing, for the whole preset look as such, but I use it for the options it gives me, and that is a Mastin Labs Ilford Original Film preset, which I'm not sure if you can still get. But I'm not using any of the film looks or the tones. What I'm going to use though is the black and white filters. So you can see I can use red, green or yellow, and I just find it works quite nicely. So I'm going to go for red. And get rid of that. And now I'm going to drop a linear gradient down. Now I could use a sky mask, but what I probably would find is that the mask would look a little bit strange around the mountain line, so I want to try and keep it as natural as possible. Something like that, and now I'm going to increase the contrast in the sky, and we'll have a look at that. Right, so now I'm going to slide the white slide basically quite far up. I'm going to bring the blacks down. I'm trying to keep the contrast as strong as possible, and by controlling the white and black slider, that's a good way of not only controlling the contrast but making sure you're keeping it within the range of tones available, so you're not clipping anything as such. lift the shadows again. And now I am going to try a sky filter. And we'll have a look at that. I think if anything, the only patch I'm not particularly happy about is this bit of cloud here, or that cloud, just this bit here to have a bit more impact in it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a radial gradient around it. Maybe too big. Feather it quite a lot. And now we'll try bringing the exposure down, but increasing the contrast, bringing the whites up. Maybe move that just slightly. Now I do like these sort of shafts of light coming in here. I'm not sure if I can do much about it. I'm going to try a linear and selectively increasing the contrast just in that point. I think it's going to be quite... Bring it on so I can actually see it, yes. No, I'm not entirely happy with that one, so I'm going to get rid of that. I think the last thing I'm going to look at, going back over to my options with the Mastin Labs preset, and that is warm tone paper or cool tone paper or neutral paper. And that's because when you're in the darkroom, basically the choice of paper you print onto makes a huge impact on the final look of your print. So you could buy a warm tone paper, or you could buy a cool tone paper, or you could just use a total neutral paper. So I'm going to try, see how the warm tone looks, cool tone. I think actually on this occasion I am actually going to go for warm tone. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a quick play with the curves. Just a very subtle S-curve. A little bit of dehaze, a little bit of clarity. And I think that one's about ready, and let's have a look at it. Okay, so we're going bang up to date for the next shot. I took this shot last week. It was taken with the OM Systems OM5. Now that's the plain raw file. I shot it as a square, so that is exactly how I took the shot. I may actually have a look though and see if it would suit a different crop. And on this occasion, I think it actually may, so I may actually go for that. It's quite unlike me to change the crop after the event, but I think we will on this one. So I'm going to straighten things up first of all, because you can see the horizon's not looking great. I was getting quite wet at the time, so just straight down to upright, auto, looks a little bit straighter. Now I'm going to process this shot a little bit different because I'm actually going to try using Silver Efex, which I'm using the trial version at the moment. I used to use it a few years ago and I used to quite like it, but I think it is quite easy to make your images look really overcooked. So I'm always keen to try and get my photos looking as natural as possible, even though you can get away with far more with black and white than you can with colour. So say it's just a trial version, so I'll just continue the trial. And there are some fantastic options here, which I'm probably going to ignore most of really. I'm just going to go straight down the left hand side for the sort of looks that you can put in. And I'm going to try high structure, it's normally one of my favourites. And I'm going to go for high structure smooth, I think. And now if I come over to this side, you can see I've got colour filters. I'll try red, orange, yellow, green and blue, and find the one I want to use. It's definitely not red on this occasion. I think I'm actually going to go for green, so we'll go for green. And now what we can do with this, we can actually do global adjustments as you would expect, but what we can also do is we can add a localized adjustment, a selective adjustment as such. So I'm going to actually add a control line, bring that down like that. So effectively it's a graduated filter, isn't it? Bring the brightness down a bit and see if we can bring the shadows up. We'll amplify the white a little bit. To be honest, I think, as I said before, it's quite easy to overcook it. Now, what I do like about using Silver Efex is you have this here, which is effectively the zone system, so you can see where your darks are. So I can see I've got pure blacks here, and you can go all the way through your file until your point where you see you got your highlights and your white, so your last zone. So you can see a lot of my sky is very close, but it's actually still some detail there. So that's all pretty good, I think. We'll apply that. And we'll go back into the file in Lightroom. I prefer doing most things in Lightroom, if I've been honest. So now I want to do something about the sky, because I'm not happy about the sky. So I'm just going to do a sky mask. Bring it down a little bit darker. Now, I would quite like to exaggerate the water channel here and that movement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically create a brush. And on this brush, I've got a flow. I do a flow of 60 yard, density 60 yard, feather 88 should be enough. I'm just going to paint around the water and around here. And now I'm just going to bring the exposure up on there slightly, doesn't have to be much, and the contrast slightly. And that should absolutely be fine. And just to give you an actual idea what that has done, I will just quickly remove it. and undo the move. So it's very subtle, very, very subtle. It's all about being subtle, to be honest. Now, I'd quite like to have a little bit of vignette, I think, just around the edges. Nothing drastic, just a little bit. Essentially what I want to do is I want to draw people's eyes into this bit of the frame, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory really. And the last thing I'd like to do, I'd like to bring a little bit of detail out on this rock, so I'm going to actually do another brush. And maybe on the little rocks there, but I'm not doing much. Again, very subtle tweaks. Just very subtle tweaks. So the histogram all looks good. To be honest, I think that one's ready for us to export and to have a look at now. Okay, the final shot's a little bit special, and it was taken from a night up the Cheviot Hills. I was actually up the Cheviot itself, and I was using the Olympus EM5 Mark II, so 16 megapixel body, and I believe I was using the 40-150 f2.8 Pro lens, which I remember being very heavy to carry up. And as you can see, it's an amazing cloud inversion. So what we've got here, we've got sort of this fog and mist just sort of coming around the side of the hills and just coming right round, and it's creating a nice S shape. And I've always thought this would be a pleasing shot, but I've never been able to edit it how I actually want it, and I think it's going to have to be quite high contrasting. I think I'm going to try Silver Efex, but I think the problem was I had a little bit of light come on here, and I think I may have just been pushing it a little bit for the dynamic range of the EM5 Mark II. So anyway, let's go straight into it, see what we can do. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do a linear gradient and try and sort out this light a little bit, see if I can bring those highlights so we're dealing with the same sort of level. Okay, that might be better. Look at those little trees, it's just, I do like the scene. Let's try it in Silver Efex. I haven't decided if I'm going to go ahead and purchase Silver Efex yet. I do find it good for some things, but then I find it very easy to overcook, as I said earlier, so undecided. We shall continue the trial. But anyway, so that's the overexposed look, which is not what I really want. But as you can see, I think high structure is starting to look a little bit overcooked on this occasion. So I'm going to go down and see what else there is. Push process. Now, push process is quite interesting because it seems to have calmed the clouds at the back. I quite like that actually. But I think I actually prefer push process +3. Right, so we'll do that one. Again, I'm going to go to my colour filters. I don't think they'll be achieving as that much. Yeah, we'll keep it off. What I do want to do, you see how we've got this sort of grain effect, we want to get rid of that. And the easiest way is just to crank the grain per pixel up to 500 and then it disappears. Let's have a look at the zones again. So there's no jet blacks. A little bit of white there, as suspected up on the top. I think we're very close to the clip in there, which I think is why I've always struggled a little bit with it. And in fact, what I'm going to do a control point, a control line. Let's see if I can bring that down. The brightness a little bit. Yeah, I think that will probably do for that. Right, so the shot's now on. As I pointed out right at the start, what was really interesting the most was the S shape in the frame. That's really what caught me to the whole scene, and as much as I think these little trees are beautiful, it was this shape that was doing it for me. So keeping that in mind, I want to try and darken this a little bit up in the corner, simply because I want to try to make sure there's no distracting features up there. It only has to be a little bit, that's probably enough. And I'm doing a very slight crop to lose this little distracting highlight. Now, yeah, I think, I'm wondering if an 8x10 crop may actually be a little bit better. And I think it actually could be. Because for me, it was always about the S shape. That's what I wanted to try and get through on this photo. So I think I'm actually quite happy with that. I'm going to see if I can apply any sort of coloured paper. Cool tone's not working. But I quite like the warm tone. And finally, I might do a very, very slight vignette. Doesn't have to be much. And there, after nearly 8 years of waiting, I think I'm quite pleased with that one, and I'll put it on the screen for you to have a look at. Now hopefully that has given you a rough idea about how I approach my editing. As you can see, I don't spend too long on it. I think if you spend too long on editing a photo, then essentially the photo wasn't strong enough in the first place, because I'm not trying to rescue it with post-processing. I'm trying to basically finish off the capture stage. And it's taken me a while in this one to actually finish off that capture stage. But I think I quite like that one, so I think we've got there in the end. And I think that's the key. Sometimes just sit on your photos and come back to them. Because as you get older and your style changes or your experience changes, then the way you approach your processing will change. But all in all, as I said, this video wasn't a tutorial at all, and really it's just to give you an insight into how my mind works when I'm processing my black and white images. Because it's not really as open and shut case of taking a photo and then putting it on the screen. You know, I have to take the photo, then I have to process it to complete the job and then display the finished article. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video and do hope you've got something from it. We will be back out in the field next week, so again, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do consider subscribing to it. And I'll see you again soon for another one. Thanks for watching.